Chapter 19 Roses of Silver. Freya and Lily spend the rest of the day together in her room, chatting and sharing stories. Not touching on the heavy subjects they discussed. Flora purred between them and Freya finds herself smiling, laughing along with Lily, and Freya's apprehension of the night diminishes. As the sun starts to set, the riotous noise of fairies celebrating in the gardens dim as well, getting ready for the ball. The reminder makes Freya's breath tighten, the almost forgotten nerves returning. In the most Lily-esque distraction, she takes Freya to her room to search for their dresses, claiming that if Freya has to make a life-altering decision, she might as well look great doing it. Freya rolls her eyes but smiles nonetheless, appreciating Lily's talent to make any situation feel light, solvable, like Freya still has some control in the matter. Even if she doesn't, Lily's plan falters as Freya tries on dress after dress after dress. How she has this many dresses Freya has no idea. Her closet could hold the entirety of the court how big it is. And yet, with each dress Freya shrugs in the leaning mirror as she studies the flowing gowns draped over her body. None of them feel right. Too tight, too loose, too suggestive. All of them gorgeous, Lily's taste is impeccable, but in each of them Freya feels foreign in her own skin. An ironic thought as she thinks of the allure still on her, hiding her identity from the hundred of fairies. The gown Lily chooses for the night is stunning. A sky blue gown with tulle sleeves that lace into delicate bows at her sun-kissed shoulders. Strings of lilies of the valley, Lily's favorite flower considering their similar names, flow from the bodice, cut in perfectly at her waist, and trail to the floor, pooling at her feet. She looks like an iridescent lagoon, her sapphire eyes bright against the shimmering blue. One braid curves the side of her head, meeting the free strands into an updo, completed with barrettes of the flowers matching her dress. Even with Freya's indecisiveness to choose a dress, Lily insists on doing her hair and painting her face with rouge and elongating her lashes, defining her sea-green eyes with deep charcoal. Wondrously she makes Freya's curls soft, elegantly flowing over her shoulders. She pins strands behind her ear with a golden sun, her human ear. Truly thinking of everything, she makes room for the sharp point the allure provides. Even still in her casual clothes Freya feels beautiful. Still undecided on her dress, she returns to the massive closet, combing through the countless tulle and satin. Lily glances outside, noticing the crusting moon over the horizon. She gives Freya an intentional look. Time is running out. The midsummer ball is starting soon. Lily's face rings of guilt as she explains she promised to meet Daniel before the ceremony, but will stay if Freya wants her to. Freya conjures the most convincing smile she can muster, telling her to go. That she'll be fine. Even Lily seems doubtful of the words, but with a final push from Freya she leaves, telling Freya to pick a dress. Any dress, and to hurry to meet Merlin at her room for him to escort her. Giving a smirk as she says his name, Freya picks through the closet once more before giving up, settling on finding a suitable dress in her own closet, even if it doesn't match the exquisiteness of Lily's ensemble. A spark occurs in Freya as she remembers a silvery gown she once noticed in the back of her own armoire. She slips out of Lily's room, walking briskly back to hers, knowing she's running short on time, each step a reminder of what's waiting for her. In her room she hurriedly digs to the back of her armoire, feeling the smooth fabric on her fingers. She pulls out the ornate gown, examining it. Before she even puts it on she knows this is the dress. The heart-shaped neckline leads into flowing balloon sleeves that hang off her shoulders, bunching at her wrists, and then flowing slightly over her fingertips. Tight at her waist with an open back. The skirt dips to the ground, pooling slightly, causing a slight train of silvery fabric behind her. It's completely her. Even Flora seems to nod in approval. She stares at herself in her silver mirror, matching the shade of her gown, and her mind is instantly transported to the brief vision she had in the garden when Merlin first used his mist. A hazy image of her reflection in the silver dress. Freya blinks the image away at a light rap at the door, signaling Merlin's arrival. Unsure of how their dynamic will change after tonight, and even of how it's changed since the previous night. Their passion cut short by the thought of today of Rory of the Oath. She wonders if they'll have to keep up appearances, Merlin still according her to the feasts, or if Rory will take over as her public companion. Either way she'll find out soon. There's no use stewing on it. Her nerves shift to butterflies as she opens the door, remembering their kiss. She tries to not have a too obvious reaction as she takes in Merlin's handsome face. His loose black curls, the black and violet tunic showcasing the cut of his muscled body. Not a fighter's body like Rory's but still powerful and tempting. Merlin's amethyst eyes roam over her freely, taking her in. His voice is soft as he says, "You look beautiful, Freya." A different kind of passion in his voice than last night, tender. Slightly sad. Freya realizes she feels the same in her. She steps toward him, having so much to say. To compliment him, to address what has grown between them. But the words come out scrambled. Merlin, you have been. He gives her a knowing smile, understanding the words she can't say. Quietly, his eyes somber. Don't worry about me tonight. He extends his arm to her and she takes it, relishing his cool touch. She's not sure when she'll feel it again, if she ever will. After tonight. Don't worry about me either, Freya whispers, and he responds by pulling her hand wrapped around his arm to his lips, his gentle lips caressing it. No matter their words, they both know the worry will be there, for each other. Freya takes a deep breath as he returns her hand to his, the feel of his lips lingering. They walk through the halls to the midsummer ball. To her engagement. Merlin leads her to the opposite side of the castle than where the usual dinners are, out the side wooden doors lined with ivy and to the extravagant garden with blooming roses. The pearl drift roses white, sprinkled with the rosy pink that gleam in the moonlight circle a massive greenhouse. Set in the shape of a dome, the walls and ceiling entirely made of glass. Freya spies the already dancing blend of fairies inside. Their beautiful dresses swirling around with them, the handsome males twirling them in rhythm to the music sprinkling out of the greenhouse. Freya and Merlin walk inside, showcasing an even more beautiful scene. On one side a banquet table lined with delicacies of fruits, cheeses and breads cluster around decorative thistles, roses and greenery. The same fauna snake along the walls. And in the middle, a golden fire similar to the bonfires, but the hue of the solstice liquid dance in the center of the spacious room. Lily and Daniel are already there, standing near the wine table. Large crystal decanters full of ruby elixir that no matter how many fairies pour from, instantly refills. Lily catches Freya's eye, and her jaw drops as she watches Freya walk through the stunning greenhouse. She whispers something to Daniel and rushes over. Her eyes graze over Merlin for a second, not indicating anything of what Freya told her. At least Freya knows she can keep a secret. But then as she surveys Freya, when I said pick a dress, I didn't mean that one. Freya looks down at her dress, confused. It was in my closet, I thought it was nice. Freya looks around the room to the fairies in similar attire. She locks eyes with Rory across the room. His emerald eyes widen at the sight of her, his face overcome with an emotion she can't quite understand. She turns back to Lily, shaking off Rory's look of. Was it surprise? Slightly embarrassed, Freya asks. What's wrong with my dress? Lily purses her lips, now looking at Merlin. You really let her wear this? Tonight? Merlin's face is filled with the same confusion as Freya, offering an unknowing shrug as he looks back to the dress, trying to find what's wrong with it. Freya grabs Lily's hand, a little too forcefully, and repeats, Lily, what's wrong with my dress? She grabs onto Freya's crushing hand, not to pull it off but to comfort Freya. It seems like she doesn't want to say it, and yet she quietly says, this is your wedding dress. Freya feels like she's trapped in tar. The loudness of the music, the laughing fairies around her, swallowed out by the ringing in her ears. Her cheeks red boiling with embarrassment. The vision of herself, the pull to the dress. Tonight of all nights. The realm has a wicked sense of humor. She can't stomach looking at Merlin's face, or returning her eyes to Rory. He knew that's why his face crumpled in the way it did. Frantic to remedy the situation, to slip out of the blatant reminder of who she used to be, and apparently still is, at least a small part of her. Freya whispers, can I change? Her eyes on the door she just walked through. The voice of Aaron answers her question for her as he addresses the crowd from a golden throne etched with suns, and the midsummer festivities begin. As he talks, his red eyes scan over the crowd, his eyes landing on Freya. And for a moment she thought he might kill her right there with the rage in his eyes. But his eyes lift from hers and continue sweeping over the crowd. Daniel joins them from the wine table, bringing a new full glass to Lily that she downs in a second. It almost seems like she's more stressed about the situation than Freya. Almost. As Aaron speaks, Freya notices a curt, breathtaking woman watching her. Rian. Still in black, the satin gown has a plunging neckline and hugs her body, bright red staining her lips. Noticing Freya's returned stare, she brings her attention back to her glass, bringing it to her lips. Seems like she doesn't particularly care to listen to Aaron either. At Aaron's final words officially christening the celebration, the room toasts their endless win and erupts back into celebration. Freya is still frozen, mulling over the implications of her dress choice, over how foolish she now feels in it, only melting when she sees Rory begin to make his way toward them, pushing through the pulsating crowd. His eyes set on Freya, on the dress. Her wedding dress. The one meant for him. Chapter 20. The Dance of Midnight Sun. Any remnant of internal strength left in Freya vanishes as Rory inches closer, the scared part of her rising up and taking over. She turns to Lily. Can we please go somewhere? Anywhere. You can't avoid him forever, Lily responds, looking between her and Rory. Freya can't bear to look at Merlin next to her, who has gone still, no doubt his face in an apathetic mask with Rory nearby. I know, Freya answers, her eyes pleading. But I can for right now. Lily's tension breaks, laughing lightly. Scaredy-cat. She grabs Freya's hand and leads her to the wine table, away from Rory. Now a safe distance away, Freya glances back to where they were just standing, which is now occupied by both Rory and Merlin. Freya's cheeks heat, this time not from the dress. Lily notices too, raising an eyebrow. I hope that's not awkward. Freya cuts her a warning glance. Lily chuckles to herself, examining the expansive wine table, pouring herself another glass and offering to Freya. Do you want one? I can water it down for you. Freya looks apprehensive at the decanters in question, remembering what happened with Merlin after just one sip, asking him to stay with her. She pushes the memory out of her mind. Lily adds, if you can't even say hello to him, you might need it tonight. No pressure though if you don't want any. Extremely watered down, Freya counters, not exactly trusting Lily's idea of what watered down means. Don't worry, I know. She grabs a fresh glass and pours barely any wine in and adds water from, of course, the smallest decanter. Lily's dainty hands wrap around the stemmed glass, covering it in a blue glow. Okay, this should be just enough. Freya takes a sip of the liquid courage, preparing herself for what the night will bring. Even with the wine, Freya evades Rory most of the night, flitting between different sides of the spacious greenhouse. He seems to get the hint, hanging back. Even throughout her constant fleeing, Freya finds herself stealing glances at Rory. She tells herself it's so she can keep an eye on him, to know when the time comes to make her decision. When she can't avoid him anymore. But she wonders if what pulled her to her wedding dress is also pulling her to Rory. And that to Freya is terrifying. Merlin and her don't dance together, not tonight. She can feel his mood shift ever so slightly as the night continues, despite his stoic face showing no outward signs. At least he keeps Rory occupied, and sometimes her as well when Rory talks to the fairies of the court. Most of the night, Freya sticks by Lily's side, who has taken it upon herself to watch over Freya the entire night, making sure she's comfortable, not too tipsy from the wine, and ensuring that Freya won't internally combust at any moment. Freya feels a little like she's being babysat, but as it's her only form of distraction, that's okay with her. Daniel is oblivious to the situation, especially perplexed by Lily's hovering over Freya. He doesn't complain or question, instead chattering with Freya and Lily about different things. Again, Freya appreciates the normalcy of it. Eventually, when she feels more comfortable, most likely from the wine, Freya tries to convince Lily that she should enjoy herself, try to have fun instead of being stuck with Freya. Lily brushes her words off, reminding her that she has an eternity of midsummer celebrations. And Freya realizes that she now does too, either as a human or a fae. She feels that tug inside of her calling out, the yearning to be complete. For a brief moment, Freya's worries push to the back of her mind as everyone looks up at the glass panels pointing toward the sky. The moon is bright and high, the luminescent glow gleaming through the glass panels. The ivory moonlight starts to turn redder and redder, until the entire full moon is engulfed in amber, the color of Rory's hair. As she thinks this, his voice appears behind her, making her jump. Are you avoiding me? Lily, who's standing next to Freya, looks between them, an obvious expression of awkwardness on her face. She grabs Daniel's hand, announcing, we're going to go dance. She shoots Freya a last encouraging look, and Rory takes her place next to Freya. Freya keeps her eyes on the blood-red moon. I have not been avoiding you. Rory snorts. Every time I'm near you, you run to the other side of the room. She peels herself from the moon to look him in the eye. If you were in my position, you would do the same. He studies her, his eyes soft. This isn't easy for me either. This is what you wanted, Freya snaps. She's being curt. She knows this isn't easy for him either, but he's not the one with the repercussions, the ultimatum. For the first time, she wonders if he even does want this anymore. If she lives up to who she used to be, the girl he fell in love with all those years ago. Besides that, she certainly hasn't been making this easy on him. Not that she should. His eyebrows furrow slightly. Not like this, Freya. If I knew that this would happen, I would have never agreed to the oath. His wording catches her off guard. What do you mean agreed? He looks as if he said too much. He chews on his lip. He looks back at the moon and then to her. I don't have much time before the ceremony. Of course, Brennan of Summer, Freya says sarcastically, emphasizing his latest title. His eyes try to communicate to her what he can't, at least not right now. As soon as it's over we'll talk. Freya gives only a slight nod. He lingers for a moment until Aaron calls out to him from his gilded throne. Freya stands, arms crossed, as she watches him go, the cockiness in his step gone. Lily quickly scurries over to join Freya. That didn't seem to go well. No, it didn't, she replies sharply. Freya turns her attention to the fire in the middle of the room, and Lily follows suit, knowing when to not push an issue. The flames burn brighter as a single glimmer of light flowing from the blood-red moon lands in the middle of it. The small collision of lunar and fire emanates power throughout the green room. More than the solstice drink, much more than that, and Freya can feel it rattle in her bones as it seeps into her, and the full room of fairies. The flames grow brighter, wider, and taller. No heat radiates from them. Instead, a sparkling mist of sun fills the room as the eclipsed moon reaches its apex in the sky, the power flowing through it swelling. Freya watches as the glittering energy radiates around her, encircling the room. The fairies, the plants, everything it touches absorbs it. She holds up her hand as flecks of white and golden light dance around it. She looks at Lily, who is radiant, the glow attaching to her and making her even more beautiful. That's when she notices everyone's beauty enhances from the swirling light of midsummer. She feels the golden specks tickle her cheeks, her hands, and she feels a pull to the fire. The wonder of it, and walks closer to it, Lily following behind her. The crack in Freya splinters with the influx of power, drawing her to the source. The rest of the fairies also beckon to its call, encircling it the roaring fire of sun and moonlight. She spots Merlin across the room. For once his aura is not covered in his mysterious dark mist, replaced by the sparkling light around him. He gives a reserved smile to her when he notices her staring. She offers one back until Lily whispers, "Look." She follows her eye line, and sees Rory entrenched in the golden hues, radiating the brightest, as if he has always been part of the light. He doesn't look like the sarcastic, smirking man but a warrior. Strong, fierce, and utterly devastating in the glow. Someone worthy to be called king one day, especially as a hazy glow forms a golden crown of moon, stars, and sunlight around his red hair. He steps toward the fire, the flames and tendrils reach out to him. Then, without any warning or sign, he leaps through the flames. He emerges on the other side, completely unscathed, a wild smile on his face. His skin and clothes are covered in silky golden light, dazzling the room. One by one, the competitors from the fight follow his lead, leaping through the pulsating flames. Their bodies are dancing embers in the flames, burning brighter and flaring as each goes after another. What is happening? Freya leans to Lily. An ancient tradition of the first fairies. They would bring offerings to the sun and moon every midsummer and midwinter, and then celebrate enhanced powers given to them. They would leap and dance through the flames. The Brennan of Summer or Brennan of Winter always leads them, gaining the most power until the next ceremony, Lily explains. It might seem silly, but they're the most important holidays we have. Freya stares in wonder and Lily quietly adds, I'm happy you're here for it. And deep down, even with the circumstance of the night, Freya is happy she's for it too. She's never seen anything like this in the human realm. There were holidays, but she never celebrated, never had someone to celebrate with besides Flora. The splendor of it, the sheer power and beauty of it, she knows nothing at home could compare. As the last jumper breezes through the flames, a hush falls over the greenhouse as a low flute begins a tune so sweet and tranquil, the pace of it growing as more heavenly instruments join in. Lily grabs her hand, smiling wide. The fairy next to Freya, a stranger, grabs her other hand. And then they're dancing, spinning in circles around the flames. Rows and rows of fairies with their hands clasped dance and laugh, and Freya tries to keep up, tripping over her own feet as Lily pulls her along, making Lily laugh, and for the first time in the last 2 days Freya does too. She laughs as she spins and spins, her surroundings becoming a blur. A part of her never wants it to end. They switch directions and Freya stumbles over her feet, but the fae next to her steadies her, laughing with her. The music begins to slow, and the fairies do as well. Freya catches her breath, still smiling wide. She sees directly across from her, Rory laughing and grinning too. His eyes on Freya, brighter than the last time she saw him, and she realizes it's because she's smiling at him. The music ebbs, returning to the normal fare. The flames die down a little, the beaming glow from the midnight sun shifting from the fire as the full eclipse over the moon wanes. The fairies continue the celebration, now pulling their partners into dances. Lily, who is also breathless, looks at Freya. Is it okay if I dance with Daniel? Freya lets out another laugh at her question. Yes, of course, she says and pushes Lily slightly, confirming Freya's authenticity of being alright without her. Lily smiles. I'll catch up with you later, okay? Freya nods and Lily bounds toward Daniel, clasping his hands as they move effortlessly together. The twinge of jealousy she used to feel watching them is now completely gone. After Lily's story, even without it, she deserves all the happiness in the world. Freya's eyes roam back to Rory across the way. His hair slicked back from the golden flecks of the moonlit fire, like he bathed in it. He makes his way toward her, and this time she doesn't run away. Chapter 21. Under the willow tree. Rory strides to her, and Freya releases a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The shadow of his wide grin still on his face, the raw power of midsummer pulsating in the air around him. The outer edges reach her, teasing the powers locked inside of her, urging them to come out. She almost takes a step back from the immensity of it. Almost. She stands firm, not backing away from her powers or Rory's or even Rory in general. The crown of sun still wrapped around his ruby hair. The golden rays sparkling off of him from his hair to his cheeks, to his chest peeking under the loose linen shirt. Even his clothes twinkle, making the golden amber in his eyes even brighter as they intently focus on her, most likely gauging Freya's emotions, trying to predetermine what her answer will be. Freya stares back, knowing it's time. Time for them to talk, for him to explain the story behind the oath, and then for her to decide if she'll stay with him or leave. Permanently this time. Freya feels a hint of guilt flare in her. Dull but present, thinking of Merlin watching them from the side of the room. Knowing what's about to happen. She doesn't have to check to know that Lily's eyes are on her too. Waiting for Freya to call her for help, no doubt ready to swoop in the moment she does. Even as the weight dredging inside her makes her legs wobbly, makes her heart feel like it's going to burst out of her chest. A glimmer of hope remains in her that she'll be able to get through this. Rory offers a slight smile, nodding his head toward the front entrance. It's a bit crowded in here, care for a walk? Even in her determination to be strong, Freya's mouth goes dry. She can't tell from his expression if he knows what she'll decide, but feels comforted in the fact he is just as anxious as she is. She nods, lifting her dress to not trip over it as they silently walk outside to the gardens, internally cursing the irony of it the entire time. His shoulders brush against hers, and she almost recoils at the surge of power coming from him. How he's able to contain it all. What it must feel like for him. Harnessing the power of the eclipse, of both the solar and lunar cosmos. It must take years of control and patience. Maybe that's why he's been able to be calm and collected with her. At least regarding this matter. Outside, away from the greenhouse, Freya feels like she can breathe again. Not realizing how stifling the magic in the air was nor the amount of fairies pressed against her. Now the cool summer breeze kisses her cheeks and fills her lungs. The worry of Merlin stews in the back of her mind, despite their mutual agreement to not worry about each other. Watching him talking to him was painful. Painful to think of what could have been between them, and the passion that lingered between them, turned into solemnness as the night went on. No mind tricks from him, no distrust. At least for tonight, and Freya wonders if it truly is a goodbye. A piece of her deflates at the possibility. Rory gives her an apprehensive look as he continues to lead her away from prying ears that might be listening. Freya imagines Rianne with her sharp ears cocked toward them, enjoying her misery. Freya notes in her mind to deal with that soon, to find out why Rianne hates her so much. What secret she's holding that Merlin is protective over. They reach a sprawling willow tree, shrouded in darkness and pink moonlight. The leaves whisper as the wind blows through it. Roses, the shade of the moon, circle the base of the thick trunk. The eclipse is a mere trace of it once was, the diminished glory still brighter than she's ever seen in the human realm. Freya opts to stare at it instead of Rory, an easier sight to take in. The silence between them echoes around them, and she waits for him to speak first, wondering if he's waiting for her to do the same. She chances a glance at him, and is surprised to see his gaze is also set on the moon watching over them. The soft light hitting his face, making his red hair glow in its wake. His emerald eyes slide to hers, acknowledging that he sees her looking at him before they return back to the moon. For the first time since she's met him, he seems to be nervous. As if one wrong look or word might make her run away again. And maybe that, more than anything, is what he's worried about. Freya thought about it, during the time spent alone in her bedroom, wondering if all of this regaining her memories, the oath, the curse, is worth it. Having to hide who she is, dealing with Aaron, and with Rianne's condescending self. The tangled mess of her and Merlin. Even with all of it at stake, in her core she knows what she's going to decide. She lifts her eyes to him, ready for the conversation. The question that hangs between them, taunting and teasing. He faces her, understanding the silent cue that she's ready to approach the subject. His face is void of the wild grin he sported earlier, not even a hint of a smirk. His brows curved up together, and Freya realizes he truly doesn't know what she's going to say. The fear of her deciding to leave seems to overpower the hope of her staying. His eyes glance at her dress and back to her, and he lets out a sigh as he speaks. That dress was your mother's. He smiles softly as if reliving a distant memory. You swore that would be the only dress you would get married in. Of course you showed it to Lily first. And then, even though all the traditions forbid it, you showed it to me. I remember thinking I couldn't. His voice chokes on the words, swallowing, and then continues. I couldn't believe that I was the one you wanted to marry. That I didn't deserve you after all those years of Aaron making me fight. After doing things that made me hate myself. After all of it, you wanted to be with me. Freya's eyes widen in surprise at his words, at how he felt in their relationship. Like he wasn't worthy of her. And the mention of her mom, that the dress she hated all night once belonged to her. A crease forms between her brows as she thinks over the new information, and he doesn't give her much time as he composes himself and continues. You wanted to be married to solidify the bond between us, even as Aaron became more power-hungry. So you asked me to marry you. Freya's eyebrows shoot up and he smiles, nodding to confirm it. Of course I was upset that I wasn't the one to ask you first, but I said yes in a heartbeat. We wanted to wait to be married, for there to be peace between the realms as Aaron tried to grasp power over both. And as tensions rose, you wanted there to be something more between us. The oath. Freya's heart stops as she realizes what he's about to say. That she was the one to ask for the oath, to initiate it. That's when you thought of it, an oath. You feared I would be sent back to fight, and we would be lost to each other. So you proposed an oath, promising each other we would always find our way back to each other and be married. Rory carefully says the last sentence, looking intently at Freya to read her reaction. She's too stunned to have one. She breaks his gaze to look around, taking in the situation. The one she thought he had forced upon her was actually her bringing them back together. He rubs a hand on the back of his neck, guilt written in his eyes. I never thought this. That you would not remember it. Not feeling the same way once I found you, I never thought we would actually be apart. Never considered the possibility. His stare, still on her but seems distant. Far away. If I had known, I would never have agreed to it. Even though at the time it was the happiest day of my life when we vowed to each other. That winter day. He pauses, devastation written in his face. I wish I could go back and change it. Freya feels the truth of it, through his words and the bargain made between each other. She feels herself reaching out to him, her hand resting lightly on his strong forearm, ignoring the power still leaking around it. You didn't know, you couldn't have known. His face crumples slightly at the words, at the comfort she extends to him, and Freya's surprised at it too, that this conversation has gone a completely different way than she initially expected. He places a calloused hand over hers, shaking his head slightly. We made the oath and the realm locked it into place. And then, as you feared, Aaron sent me on a mission, and when I returned. He stiffens, his jaw locking, as if the pain from what he's going to say remains under the surface, never forgetting it. The link between the realms and you were gone. All of us, Merlin, Lily too, tried to search for you. We scoured every inch of the fairy realm and couldn't find you anywhere. We tried to search the human realm, but with the sever we couldn't find you. Until now. After chipping away at the barrier for years, finding a way to get to you. The only thing sign that you were still alive was the oath between us. And then. Freya knows what he's going to say, the part of the story she knows all too well. She finishes his sentence. When you found me, I was human. That day in the cafe, you knew I didn't recognize you, that I had no idea who you were. His face is heavy with sadness or guilt, Freya can't tell. His broad shoulders slump slightly as he nods, and finally says the words she's been waiting for since he proposed her first day in the realm. I was selfish for not telling you before coming to the realm. But I thought if you knew about our oath, you would have never agreed to return. If you regained your memories and wanted to return to the human realm, it would be your choice. When we stepped through the portal, I felt the oath grow stronger. But there was a darkness to it. And I realized if you didn't agree to the oath or have the intention, then the realm would go through with the punishment of breaking an oath. With that feeling, the fear of you being hurt, I couldn't let that happen to you. So I panicked and I asked you in the worst way possible. And I'm sorry. She feels his hand around hers tighten. Her heart starts beating faster, and she knows what's coming. He looks down at their hands, not being able to meet her eyes. And now if you want to return, I'll find a way to get you there. But if you want to stay, I won't be selfish. He lifts his eyes to her, glassy with emotion. You can have your own life. And I will never let anyone, Aaron, the realm, anyone. He repeats the word through gritted teeth, the spark of the warrior coming through. Hurt you. He gets down on one knee, Freya's hand still on his forearm as he looks up at her, ready for his heart to be shattered if she doesn't choose him. Freya, now that we have found each other, will you marry me? Chapter 22 Freya's decision. Freya feels the question stir in her. The touch of their hands feel electric as he asks her to marry him. The realm affirming approval and wanting her to say yes to Rory's question. She opens her mouth, having her answer prepared, unchanging after all he revealed to her. But she closes it again, her words stuck in her throat. With the emptiness of her answer between them, he drops the arm that her hand had been wrapped around. His eyes drift to the ground, letting out a small sigh before standing up. I'll take you to the human realm. He seems small as he says it, even as he towers over her. A warrior with a broken heart. Wait, Freya says, her voice raspy as she tries to push out her words. I'm not saying no. Are we sure there's no way around this?
Rory helplessly replies, no.
At least no way I know of besides death by the realm, and we're out of time. I'm sorry, I tried to wait as long as we could before the punishment took effect. I tried to. Then if there's no way, then the human realm or death. She pauses, biting her tongue before outright answering. I have 2 conditions. Life sparks in Rory, subdued but there. Anything, Freya. She nods, continuing. The first one, if we do find a way to break an oath, we do it. Rory nods his head in agreement, his eyes eager. Second, if anything physical ever happens between us, it must be consensual. Freya, I would never. Rory's eyes darken with seriousness. His jaw clenches. I would never do that to you, never touch you without you wanting me to. I won't let anyone do that to you. Freya nods, she didn't think he would, but his reaction surprises her. How adamant he is, how protective. I needed to say it, to make sure we're on the same page. So since you agree to the 2 conditions then? She closes her eyes, feeling the weight of the words she's about to say. The words that will change her life, tie her to someone, to Rory. She opens them, her lips in a hard line. Yes, I will marry you. The party in the greenhouse is still in full swing. If this was another world, another life, it might feel like an engagement party. When Freya and Rory walked back, there was only silence between them, and a stronger bond between them that Freya isn't quite sure how to explain. Not of love, but of duty to each other. It seems like the realm doesn't care about her resistance to the oath. As long as it's solidified, they remain safe. As soon as she said yes, she felt a reprieve from a heaviness she realized was always a part of her. As if the realm had been pressing down on her until she agreed to her original promise. Merlin spots them first, standing a tad too nonchalantly against one of the glass walls. He straightens as he catches Freya's eyes. His voice floats in her mind. Well, as if her standing there isn't proof of her answer. She gives a subtle nod. His amethyst eyes sag at the confirmation. Freya forces herself to look away, feeling like she might fall apart in the middle of the celebratory fairies dancing around them. Rory glances down at her as they make their way through the crowd, like he's waiting for her to do exactly that. The gold still glittering on his wary face. Freya feels a swift breeze of air as Lily appears beside her, giving her a deep look, not daring to say the words out loud. Not with listening fairies and Aaron sitting yards away. Freya responds the same as she did to Merlin, and Lily nods with her. Her sapphire eyes brimming, squeezing her hand. I'm happy you're staying. I am too, Freya responds softly, squeezing Lily's hands back. Not exactly smiling but not frowning either. She has a friend here. Someone to help her navigate both Merlin and Rory. A sense of relief and happiness floods through her. She won't have to do this alone. Merlin walks over to them, his unreadable mask back on his face, but his violet eyes are steely. His lips are tight, and only offers a look to Rory, an understanding between them. Freya wonders if Merlin's whispering in his mind like he does hers. Merlin gives a final glance to Freya as he takes the place beside Rory. She thinks of the memory of Merlin, him pleading with her to consider breaking the oath, wondering if he knew what the actual oath was and that she was one that asked for it. Not just for marriage but to find each other. If Merlin thought it was a possessive move on Rory's part, or if he did know, was willing to take the risk. He escaped an eternity of watching his friend marry the girl he loves. And now he's living it again. The mere thought of it made her feel hollow inside. Freya turns her attention to the fairies, twirling around the four of them. Daniel laughs with his friends in the corner, stealing loving glances at Lily. All of them having no idea what transpired moments ago. They have no idea that their future king, their Brennan of Summer, is engaged. Freya hardly believes it herself. Aaron sits separately atop his gaudy throne, looking down upon his court. His large crown is more a statement of power than tradition. How the fairies, the court and guests alike, can toast to him and act in reverence to him is astonishing to Freya. She studies them, the fae and pixies dancing in carefree loops, the glittering sprites humming around the vines, roses, and even some on the dance floor high in the air. Freya sees Rian leaning against a glass panel, hidden in the shadows by a blooming willow tree. She sips her wine slowly in a similar black dress to the first time Freya saw her in. Rian doesn't glance in Freya's direction, her azure eyes narrowed on Aaron, her jaw clenched. Her disdain for Freya pales in comparison to Rian's disposition toward Aaron. Freya wonders the reasons behind her clouded expression at Aaron, especially considering her brother Merlin works so closely with him. Freya mentally notes that as a question to ask at a different time. What Merlin provides for Aaron, what potions he was forced to take. Freya can't imagine it being anything less than what Rory's been subject to. Her anger rises toward Aaron thinking about it. Maybe her and Rian aren't so different. Maybe they're both frustrated with how he regards those closest to him, using them for his gain of the realm that Freya is now part of. Grief rolls over her as she internally says goodbye to the human realm, to her human life and all that came with it. Her makeshift apartment, the history book she poured hours into studying, her boss at the cafe. A farewell to the life she once lived. The letters from distant childhood friends scattered in her drawers. Her one keepsake emerald necklace she never dared to wear in fear of losing it. All of Flora's toys and miscellaneous items strewed around. She wonders if they're still there, or if her place has already been boarded up and packed away. If there was a search party for her when she went missing, or if her disappearance was written off as someone running away. In a sense, the latter is true. Technically, her first goodbye to the human realm happened when she stepped through the portal, deciding to enter the unknown. But now it felt more real. Freya is ready to endure a loveless marriage rather than return. The internal grieving subsides as she remembers her next goal, regaining her memories and becoming Holy Fae, hoping that the four of them working together will mend the cracked relationship between Freya and Merlin. She's curious if her feelings for Rory will change when her memories return. The memories of years of loving him, willing to bind herself to him in an unbreakable oath, will change her. If she'll change completely, losing the human part of her. Her breath catches when she realizes she'll remember her parents. Rory had said the dress she was in, her wedding dress, was her mother's. Freya runs her hands along the silver fabric, bunching it in a loose fist, trying to feel her mom through it, as if a part of her still lingered in the dress. What she would give to meet them even once. She glances at Lily, Rory, and Merlin, and even Daniel, who had joined them, lazily wrapping an arm around Lily's shoulders. Maybe she does have a family, a new one. However complicated it is, these people cared about her. The room hushes and the lively music slows into a song she could only describe as haunted. An ancient song filling the room. She leans toward Rory. What's happening? He smiles down at her as he repeats his words from the other night. Look up. She does. The first rays of sunlight peek through the horizon, filtering through the glass. The golden light catches on the shards of glass, turning into colorful prisms that dance around them. Beautiful and ethereal. Everything she would expect from a fairy realm. The entire greenhouse is in awe of the light. The reverent quiet of the fairies amplified the beauty of the streaming light that beamed down on them. Magical. Freya peels her eyes from the prisms, taking in the reactions of the room. The smiles on everyone's face. Everyone besides Rian. Her eyes still locked on Aaron, still on his throne. A smugness spread across his face as he looked down at his court. As if he's the one responsible for the magic of the sun, of the entirety of the midsummer celebrations. Freya believes for once her and Rian might be thinking the same thing. The music speeds as the sun peaks over the greenhouse and then slows as the sun shifts positions. The prisms are still there but softer, depleting with the start of morning. Lily pulls back where her head was resting on Daniel's chest. She turns to Freya, proudly announcing, "You survived your first midsummer, how do you feel?" Freya feels Rory tense, waiting for her answer. She assesses how she feels, the exhaustion washing over her. From staying up all night and her decision. "I feel like I'm ready for bed." Lily laughs. "Me too." Rory takes the opportunity. "I'll walk you back." He quickly adds, "If you'd like." Freya looks at Merlin, and an understanding smile on his face. He nods slightly. In her mind she hears his voice. I'm okay, go. Lily arches an eyebrow at Freya, but Rory doesn't seem to notice the exchange. Freya realizes they're all waiting for her to answer. Sure, let's go. Chapter 23. The Beast's True Form. Freya and Rory walk back to the castle, once again in silence. This might be the most quiet Rory has been around her since ever. They reach the front steps and Freya's ready to say a brief goodbye and escape into her room. But Rory stops on the steps, eyeing Freya, a playful smile teasing his lips. Was it as bad as you thought it would be? Freya looks at him, cocking her head. Which part are you talking about? He gives a low chuckle. The celebration, I mean, over the past few days. I know it was a lot, all things considering. I'm sure our tradition seems strange to He searches for the right word, but lets it trail off. Freya understands what he means. Human. I've never seen a celebration like that. My town had small holidays, they would decorate the streets, but never hosted events or tournaments. Freya smiles. You fairies do like to make a spectacle of everything. Rory lets out a genuine laugh. I guess that's true. It's fun though, isn't it? And Freya laughs too. She's about to quip back a sarcastic reply, but knows he could tell if she's lying anyways. She nods slightly. It is. They enter the castle, and Freya hears the crowd of fairies leaving the greenhouse, ready to crash from the exhausting dancing, or continue the partying. She isn't sure. She wonders exactly how many hours of sleep fairies need with how they carry on. Rory drops her off at her room, leaning on the doorframe. Freya walks past him, already eyeing the comfortable bed. Rory puts a hand on his shoulder, his emerald eyes sparkling. I have to say it at least once. Freya braces herself for what's about to come out of his mouth. You are beautiful in the dress. Heat rushes to Freya's cheeks at the compliment, pursing her lips to keep from smiling as she gives him a slight nod and enters the room. Rory pushes off the wall, disappearing into the twists and turns of the hallway. Freya lets out a breath, shutting the door. Despite the sleepiness drooping her eyes, she stands in front of her gilded mirror, her eyes studying her mom's wedding dress, and what she would have looked like on her wedding day. If she'll wear the dress when she can hardly think the words. She takes it off, slipping into her breezy pajamas and snuggling into bed. Flora stretched from the window and joined her on the bed, cuddling up next to Freya. The lullaby is soft and sweet as Freya drifts into a deep sleep. Freya jolts awake, her eyes wide, drawn out of her slumber as she feels strong hands shaking her awake. The shouting voice becomes clearer, the fog of sleep evaporating with the fear of what's happening. Merlin's voice. Her eyes lock on his wild amethyst eyes. His deep voice is urgent. Wake up, Freya. We have to go. Now. What's going on? She sits up and Merlin springs from the bed, quickly crossing to the doorway. His eyes plead with her to be faster. It's Aaron. He knows about the oath. Rory's with him now, we need to go. His voice emphasized the last words, a threatening warning in them that something terrible will happen if they don't leave right now. Freya jumps out of bed, still in her pajamas, not even bothering to find her shoes. Merlin's already halfway down the hallway when Freya hears it. Feels it. The entire castle quaking under Aaron's shouting. Or more accurately, booming roars that echo through the hallways, as if they're in the walls. The bones of the castle reverberate under Aaron's fury. She wonders what shape Rory will be when they get there. Merlin leads her to the source of the sound, the same study she first talked with Aaron in. She picks up her pace, both of them sprinting down the hallways. She could feel the anger palpitating in the air as they got closer and closer to the study. For a split second dread runs through her. If her coming in will fuel his rage. But even in her resistance to Rory, she can't let him face Aaron alone. Not when she's the reason behind his outrage. They burst through the study door. Aaron doesn't notice them at first, his burning ruby eyes focused on Rory. Aaron bellows. You useless child. How dare you defy my orders? Sharp red tendrils of mist lash out at Rory, striking him across the face. I won't allow this to happen, even if I have to. Rory growls at him, not even flinching at the impact of Aaron's magic. If you touch her, lay a finger on her. I will kill you. A flash of crimson flames roars around Aaron at the threat, and then he notices Freya. She froze in the doorway, his rage now directed on her. Rory turns around, his eyes widen at the sight of her, fear sprinkling his face. Freya, leave. Get out. This is enough for Freya to feel the anger course through her. At the sight of the bruises and deep scrapes that trickled down the wounds, his lips split and nose skewed. Broken. Freya steps further into the room, Aaron's flames burn brighter, filling the small space. The heat radiating as the flames almost reach her. That's where Rory gets his flames from, and she wonders if he hates it. That a part of him came from Aaron, especially if it's the reason behind his power. The power that Aaron took advantage of, using Rory to do his dirty work. Aaron spits his words at her. You. His eyes narrow, taking a few steps toward her. Freya remains in place, raising her chin, attempting to show no fear on the outside. Her insides somersault and crumble inside her. She can't fight him, can't defend herself against his power. How dare you do this? How dare you force him back into marriage? Do you think you'll win? That you'll gain control of the realm? His flames rustle, building at each word. Freya's own fire burns inside of her. You are the one destroying the realm with your arrogance and cruelty. Aaron rushes toward her, but Rory steps in front of Freya, shielding her from Aaron's mist that expels from him, slashing Rory. His breathing turns ragged from the impact, and Freya reaches out her arms to steady him. But he doesn't need it. Standing strong against Aaron. The stone walls shudder, crumbling as Aaron lets out an enraged roar at Freya's words and Rory's protection. The open door to the study slams shut, ending any chance of escape. Fury burns in Aaron's eyes, locking on Freya. She knows she's going to die. That Aaron will kill her. Merlin leaves his spot by the doorway, standing by Rory, his shoulders protecting Freya. A shield of two powerful fae in front of her. Aaron's face turns into a snarl. He flicks his wrist and Merlin and Rory fling into the walls with a thunderous crunch. Denting the walls and stones crumbling, Freya cringes at the sound, wondering if the crunch was their bones breaking. Her human body would have been crushed under the impact. A clear path forms between Aaron and Freya. This isn't the way she thought she would die. She doesn't let the terror get to her. The adrenaline from the rage coursing through her too strong. Not at the judgment of her. Not at him about to attack her. But how he treats people, how he treats his own son. Willing to hurt Rory for his own gain. Freya glares at him. I feel bad for you. You are the weak one. Having to hurt people to gain power. That's all it takes for the flames to encircle her. Rory stirs from where he lay on the floor, quickly realizing what happens. He runs to the flames, about to burst through them. His hand reaches through, and he immediately flings it back. His hand is red and blistering from the flames. He can't help her, can't protect her. Rory starts toward Aaron and then it happens. Freya can hardly make it out through the wall of flames still around her. Aaron's body shifts, his arms, legs, every part of him grows larger, stronger, turning into a darker presence. The fae features transform on his face, turning into the face of a beast. His teeth elongate into canine fangs that hang over his snarling lips. His body curves at odd angles, bones cracking beneath. Talons grow at his elongated hands. The shred of humanity vanishes as his beast-like body takes up almost the entirety of the room. His head brushes the top of the ceiling, a sinister crimson glow around him. Darkness leaks from him, and Freya feels it in her bones. The hate, the rage he feels. The beast growls at her. His eyes are the only remaining shred of Aaron, burning at her, staring into her soul. The flames around her die, the mist replacing it. The beast growls at her, his face warped and twisted into an ugly monster. The flames around her diminish, long enough for her to see a forked tongue flick out between his flames. Like she's his next meal. A tendril of black mist thrashed at her, launching her at the door behind her and pinning her there. The vapor binds around her, crushing the skin. If she lives through this, she knows her entire body will be bruised. Rory leaps at Aaron, not showing a shred of fear at the bloodthirsty shadowed beast. Orange and yellow flames burst from Rory, mightier than the ones she saw in the tournament. Through gritted teeth, Rory commands him. Let her go. Now. Talons pummel toward Rory, and he dodges them with ease. Freya struggles in the binds that tighten around her, making it hard to breathe. Rory launches himself at Aaron. Black flames tipped with orange leave his fingertips and wrap around the beast. A shrill screech comes from Aaron as he burns in the onyx flames. Aaron recoils for a moment, until blasting his full power on Rory. Talons tear across his chest, carving into him. Blood instantly floods from the deep open wounds. Rory doesn't scream, gritting his teeth against the pain. Freya's eyes can't look away, watching the sheer willpower of Rory. Aaron isn't holding back, and Freya believes this might be the last time she sees Rory. That Aaron will kill his own son over her. And Freya will be forced to watch in horror as he dies. Merlin. Where is Merlin? Freya searches for him. He stands frozen against the wall he was smashed into. His amethyst eyes clouded with an emotion she doesn't understand. His eyes lock onto Rory, to Aaron in his beast form. Unmoving. In her distraction, she realizes a second too late that Aaron threw Rory to the side, smashing him against the wall. Stronger this time, a lethal blow even for a fae. Aaron's focus falls back on Freya, breathing heavily. The black flame still encircling him, burning his flesh, but his crimson eyes burn brighter with hate. Dark and crimson shadows entwine together. The tendrils reach near Freya's heart. She sucks in a breath from pain as the shadows reach through her chest. Phantom talons scrape inside of her, and it feels like her life is pulling out of her. The small amount of magic inside her siphoned out along with her vision, her hearing. Freya's adrenaline lessens as unconsciousness beckons her. A bleak black pit of nothing on the other side. Her eyes start to close and Freya knows she won't. Chapter 24. Echo of the Trees. Freya's eyes close, leaning into the comfort of the darkness. Not feeling the pain of Aaron's mist crushing her. She hears Rory's muffled scream at Aaron, and the crack inside her ignites. The fissure locking her powers away opens, rising through her. She forces it open more and more. Her eyes fling open in time to see Rory rushing toward her, and immediately propelled back by Aaron's invisible power. His head knocking hard against the wall, his golden chest covered in blood. She feels the life inside of her start to drain again. Aaron lets out a scratchy, chilling laugh as he comes face to face with Freya. She feels his hot breath, his talons rose, ready to strike her. The final blow. Panicking, Freya releases everything she's been feeling. The anger, the sadness, the rage at Aaron. The fear of dying. The fear of not knowing if Rory is alive or not. She heaves out a blood-curdling scream and power rises inside of her, matching the intensity of her blood boiling. His arrogance and cruelty. The crack breaks and for a moment she feels free. She feels something unleash from her, unsure if it's another scream, a cry, or her powers. Whatever it is, it's enough for Aaron to break his grip on her. Freya smacks into the ground hard, landing on her arm, feeling it bent at an odd angle. The pain doesn't reach her yet. The shock, the adrenaline that arrives back with a ferocity strong enough to mask the aching of the bruises and her broken arm. Aaron screeches, the crimson glaze around him flares out, and he lashes out a tendril of mist and his claws at the same time, aiming for her face, her heart. All of the spots to kill her swiftly. Freya closes her eyes, unable to move or fight back. She huddles into herself, a flimsy attempt at shielding herself. She waits for the impact, the slice of the sharp talons against her penetrable skin. Nothing happens.
No close, no missed.
She lifts her head slightly, peeking through her fingers covering her head, wondering if Aaron will be there, wanting to see her face when he kills her. But she doesn't see Aaron. A dark mist tinted with purple circles in the room, hiding Aaron from them. She realizes hiding them from Aaron. She looks to Merlin who is concentrating, his amethyst eyes glowing in the dense darkness of the room. A calloused hand touches her softly. Rory stands above her. Or someone that used to look like Rory. He's now covered in blood. His linen shirt ripped open and soaked in the wine-colored liquid oozing out of him. His face bloodied, nose bent. Bruises covering his face. His eyes are swollen. And still he asks, "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" Freya tries to hold up her arm. The only thing that truly hurt on her. The subtle movement makes her gasp in pain. Bad idea to try to move a broken arm. Rory's eyes go wild with rage but stays silent as he easily scoops her up in his arms. The warm blood soaks into her clothes, as she presses against her chest. Exhaustion sweeping through her from Aaron sucking it out of her. Sucking the life out of her. Her eyes close again, and she tries to force them open. "You're hurt, Rory. I can walk." He endured the brunt of the beatings. She can't believe he's still alive, strong enough to carry her. Strong enough to even stand. Rory pulls her tighter against him. "I'm not letting you go. Merlin's glamour will only last so long." So Merlin did help at the last second, but still. He was able to get them a way out. Only the bolted door stands in front of them. He covers Freya, holding her tight as he kicks the door with a strength she can feel. The door erupts from the hinges, crashing against the hallway wall. Merlin is instantly beside them. He glances at Freya for a moment, catching her eyes before they shut. She doesn't have the strength to keep them open anymore. Wind rushes around her as Rory runs through the corridors, away from the study. The blood from his wound smears on her cheek as she holds tight to him. Not that she needs to, with Rory's iron grip making sure her arm doesn't move. She feels the warmth of the sun, the hum of the summer insects and sprites outside. They escaped. They didn't die. She repeats the words in her mind, resisting the pull to the hollow blackness tugging at the corners of her mind. Even outside, Rory doesn't stop. He picks up his pace, an inhumane sprint that her human eyes were never able to keep up with. She imagines them as only a blur of movement through the gardens. She isn't sure how long they run, how far they go. Her head dips back, not having the strength to hold it in place. Losing the will of her limbs, going limp in Rory's arms. He breathlessly whispers, a mix of intensity and soothing in his voice. You need to stay awake, Freya. Open your eyes. She tries to, managing to open them a crack. Enough to see the trees of the forest blur past. Rory takes his eyes off wherever he's running to, staring at her. Surveying her injuries. She feels weak under the stare, embarrassed that she, who barely had any injuries, but a broken arm and some bruises, teetered on passing out. Or death. She isn't sure what awaited her if she gave in to the lure of sleep. How easy it would be to close her eyes and quiet her mind. Rory grunts and pushes further. Freya sees a flash of Merlin next to them, following Rory's lead. They travel further and further into the forest. Rory begins to slow and then stops completely. He leans against a towering oak tree, not daring to let go of Freya. She feels his ragged breaths, his chest heaving from the amount of power he's already spent. Aaron found them. They wouldn't make it out alive. In the far distance she hears a thunderous roar. Her eyes snap open. Aaron broke free. The glamour that trapped him no longer held him in the study. If he finds them, he will kill them. Rory, still rippling with power in his weakened state. Ready for him, not going down without a fight. I know, he says softly, understanding Freya's concern. We're just waiting for. I'm here. Lily's frazzled voice calls out. A look of terror fills her face at the sight of Rory and Freya. How are you alive? Not now, Lily. Heal her, Rory demands. Lily controls her facial expression, the instincts of a healer replacing her shock. She quickly inspects Freya's injuries, wincing at her twisted arm. She touches her arm slightly, sending another shockwave of pain through Freya. She grits her teeth, knowing a scream will alert Aaron of their whereabouts. Freya examines herself. Black and blue from the binding Aaron put her in. Her unbroken arm matches the hue of purple. The ache rolls through her. Lily carefully places her delicate hands around Freya's twisted arm. A sapphire glow encompasses it. Immediately the sharp pain starts to recede, until Lily guides the bone back in place. Tears sting Freya's eyes and she grinds her teeth. Rory's hand hooked around her shoulder soothingly strokes her. She tears her eyes away from her mending arm, staring at him to distract herself. His face crumples, the rage dying, replacing with masked anguish and guilt. Freya whispers, "It's not your fault." His mouth tugs at the corners, his eyes glistening. "It is my fault, I am so sorry, Freya. I don't know how he found out." He lifts his eyes for a moment, confusion flashed across his features. Lily announces, "Her arm is done. Now these bruises." Her voice chokes up on the last words. "What happened?" Rory shifts his gaze to her. "Aaron found out about the oath. It was just us and then Freya and Merlin came. I don't know why she was there." His eyes flicker back to her. Aaron tried to leech her life from her. She somehow fought back. He was sucking the life out of her, Freya realizes. The hollowness of the darkness that awaited her. It was death. Lily moves her hands from the bruises littering her arms. She places one on her back and the other on her heart. The blue haze is a deeper color, and Freya feels like she can't breathe. "Hurry, Lily. We don't have much time," Rory warns through gritted teeth. "I'm going as fast as I can, this will take time," Lily says, her brows furrow as she concentrates. A spark lights inside Freya. She lets out a deep breath. The fog in her mind reprieves, awakening from the tiredness at her core. This should be good for now. Freya grabs Lily's hand. "Heal Rory." Lily nods, determination in her eyes. Rory backs away. "I'm fine, we have to go now." "You're not fine, you've lost so much blood," Lily protests, reaching out a hand to her. "You can heal me when we reach the cave, Aaron could be here any second," Rory says, his decision final. Freya can't believe he's still standing, ready to keep going. As soon as the words leave his lips, an immense quake at the edge of the forest shatters any chance of rest and healing. Rory hoists Freya closer to him. "Follow me." And then they're flying. The wind whips around them as they soar through the sky. Not too high. Hidden amongst the treetops in case of pursuers watching them. Ready to follow them wherever they're going. For the first time Freya sees Rory's wings. Dense but light enough that sunlight filters through them. Deep green in color and powerful. Expanding behind him, propelling them forward. He keeps his eyes forward, his voice low. "You're safe, Freya. I won't let him touch you." Chapter 25, The Hollow Cavern. They fly for hours. Rory never breaks his stride, not slowing down once. Lily and Merlin close behind them, following every turn he makes with ease. She's thankful for the cool wind around her, the breath of life flowing through her, stronger with each passing minute. The only reminder of her bruises are dull, yellow blotches. The four of them don't speak once, the only sounds coming from the wind and their quick, flapping wings. Rory hasn't told her where they're headed, and frankly she doesn't care. As long as it's far away from the castle, far away from Aaron. Freya can still feel the heat coursing through Rory, as if his wild flames are ablaze inside of him. His wound started to clot, the blood drying. His body is healing itself but not fast enough. His face is still black and blue, the shade of Merlin's hair. The straight nose bent at an odd angle, and Freya remembers the shooting pain that sliced through her when Lily healed her. Freya marvels at his strength, his determination to lead them to safety. Lily said all fairies have their limits. That Merlin's glamour casting exhausts him. Rory put forth more effort, more power against Aaron, and still seems to not have reached his limit. She glances to Merlin, a pained expression on his face. He lags behind slightly, his limits reaching their breaking point as he forces himself to push forward. The glamour on Aaron must have been much stronger than the one he cast on her in the human realm. Merlin's eyes slide to hers tucked behind Rory's strong arm. His brows furrow, a break from his mask of apathy. He quickly looks away, focusing on the tree lean in front of him. She wishes she could whisper in his mind, to find out what he's thinking, to find out why he let Aaron pummel Rory in front of them without helping. The only one to walk unscathed from the attacks, even slamming into the wall didn't leave a scratch on him. Her attention drags back to Rory as he whispers, "Hold on tight and hold your breath." She grips him harder, and she's thankful he warned her as they tilt and then plummet downwards. Straight and fast as he slices through, the wind rushes at them, stinging Freya's eyes. A sparkling lake spreads below them, no sight of land beside the distant outskirts of the water. She barely has time to suck in a breath before they slam into the water. They continue to plunge further, the water growing colder as they travel deeper. Freya's lungs burn, the need to breathe pulsating through her. She can't hold her breath much longer. Rory streamlines through the water, flying straight instead of further down. Freya sees an underwater cave draw near them, and Rory darts inside. They breach through the small opening, entering the open mouth of the cave free of water. Freya gasps for air, breathing in the stagnant air of their cavernous hiding spot. A wall of water whirls at the opening. Fish swim by and then abruptly turn away, avoiding the cave's opening. Rory holds Freya in his arms for another moment, and then softly sets her down feet first, steadying her as she wobbles. Her feet firm on the ground, he pulls his hand back and studies her. Freya catches the gaze and assures him, "I'm fine really. Thank you for everything. For saving her life and standing up to Aaron." Seconds go by, and Merlin and Lily burst into the cave, panting and drenched in lake water. A pool of water forms at Freya's own feet, and she shivers from the cold. The darkness of the cave increases the chill. They're all completely soaked. Rory looks toward the pitch-black cavern, and candles encircling the rock walls light. A small fire pit in the middle bursts aflame, and Freya quickly huddles around it, the warmth seeping through her freezing clothes, thawing the frigid iciness racking her bones. Lily stands taller, having caught her breath, and joins Freya by the fire, her strawberry hair clinging to her wind-blown cheeks. Blue light flashes through the cavern, and Freya feels a gust of air. Instantly all of them are dry, even their clothes. Lily sits on one of the rickety wooden benches placed around the fire, breathing heavily. The expansive cavern is mostly empty besides the fire pit, a narrow cot in the corner, a pile of sleeping bags, and a stash of food in the other corner. Beyond the candles, the cavern stretches into a black pit. Freya shudders, not from the cold, but from the eeriness of the hollow darkness, wondering how far it goes. Freya joins Lily on the bench, relishing the warmth of the fire, but concern for her friend is apparent on her face. Lily looks at her, noticing her expression. "I don't know why you're looking at me like that. I'm the one who was scared out of my mind seeing you like that." She lets out a heavy sigh. "I just need a breather. I can't believe Aaron acted like that." Freya can. After the stories of him, it was hard to watch. Impossible to wrap her mind around his bruteness. The monster he turned into, the hate in his eyes. She doesn't want to think of how many times he's transformed, slashing his talons on his victims. A tension between Merlin and Rory grows as they walk stiffly to the bench next to them. Lily turns to Rory now. "You." Her eyes narrow on him, on his broken nose and healing wounds that are not healing fast enough. "You should have let me heal you from the start." Rory shakes his head. Aaron would have caught up to us by then. Lily nods in understanding. Her reply is to place her hands around his face. Freya winces as she hears the crack in his nose being set into place. Rory doesn't make any sound of pain as Lily works on healing him. The bruising on his face lessens, leaving the same yellow smudges. She moves to his chest, the blood retracting and the slashes closed. Thin white scars act as the only reminder of the talons that ripped across his chest. Guilt forms in the pit of Freya's stomach as Lily finishes healing Rory. This is all her fault. Aaron had warned her that her arrival would hurt people, even if he is the one that caused it. Without her being there, none of this would have happened. Freya looks to Rory. I'm sorry, this is my fault this happened to you. If I didn't come back, this would have never happened. I'm so sorry. She searches for the right words to convey how awful she feels. The sight of him, the remnants of the beating he took, increases the guilt. The fire pit roars slightly and Rory clenches his fists. Never apologize, Freya, this wasn't your fault. Aaron has always been like this, and when I figure out who told him. He shook his head, not able to finish the sentence. But Freya understood. They all did. Silence settles around them, until Lily timidly asks, how did he find out? I don't know, Rory starts. He knew of our plans to get married back then, but we never told him about the oath. Merlin, who's been quiet this whole time, speaks up. Maybe it was someone at Midsummer. They could have overheard you and thought the information would be valuable to Aaron. Maybe, but I took precautions. We were far enough that no one could hear us, Rory replies. His eyes cut back to Merlin, suspicion lying beneath the emerald eyes. Merlin wouldn't have done this. He had no reason, no purpose to betray Freya to Aaron. She can only think of one person, Rian. She knows of the oath and must know how much Aaron hates her. Freya opens her mouth to suggest her, and then closes it, remembering Merlin's protectiveness around her. How sharp he is whenever Freya brings her up. She'll talk to Merlin privately about it, she decides, allowing him to decide what to do with the information. She's already had to lie about Rian to Rory multiple times, keeping the secret of how to break the oath for Merlin's sake. But now she needs answers. She never wants to see Rory go through that again, especially because of her. Freya stares into the flames, her mind reeling. The image of Rory and Merlin being slammed against the wall replays in her mind. Thank you, both of you, for getting us out of there, Freya whispers. I wish I could have helped. Angry at herself for being useless, not able to fight or escape on her own. She needs her powers back. The crack inside her closed again as soon as they left. Emotion seems to be the only way to trigger it. Lily rests a soothing hand on her back, as if she could read Freya's thoughts, the emotions racking through her. Rory's voice is tense as he answers, I told you there's nothing to thank. I would do it over again in a heartbeat. I just wish I could have killed him for how he hurt you. Freya's eyes flick to his, which are boring into her. Regret, guilt, and anger burning inside of him. Merlin stays quiet next to them, still refusing to look at Freya. During the fight he stood there frozen, possibly in shock from Aaron's rage, but she thought he would have done more, at least tried. His connection to Aaron is a mystery to her. He never laid a hand on him, besides pushing him out of the way the one time he went to Freya's defense. She reminds herself he is the one that got them out of there. Without them they wouldn't have walked out of there. A smile, his first smile of the day, teases Rory's face. Plus, Freya, you did help. I've never seen Aaron, especially in that form, stunned. Lily's eyebrows raise, full of surprise and pride at Rory's claim. Freya's confused. She doesn't remember actually doing anything. Yes, her power swirled inside of her, but she doesn't remember anything coming out. What did I do? Chapter 26. Betrayal of Flames. You were able to free yourself from his binding mist. No one has been able to do that before. Not even me, Rory answers, his eyebrows arches in both curiosity and surprise at her. When were you going to tell me your powers came back? Freya blinks. She didn't think she was the one to release herself. She assumed Rory had done it, or that Aaron purposefully made her fall to the ground. She didn't think she had the capability of challenging Aaron. Merlin's words from the night on the balcony replay in her mind. I want to know if your full capabilities are locked up in there. This might be a sign that they are. Excitement courses through Freya, at reaching her full powers potential, and then quickly subsides as Rory's full statement clicks in her head. That even he's never been able to break free from Aaron's shadow grip. That Aaron's done that to him before, probably a multitude of times. That form he became, what was that? Freya asks. The color in Lily's drains and she whispers. He transformed. Rory's face goes still and he nods gravely. running a hand through his amber hair. I haven't seen him like that since he waged war against the courts. I didn't know why he called me to meet with him, only when I got there did I realize, Rory explains. He was angry with me but manageable, but when Freya walked in he lost it. He tried to. He cuts off, not able to say the words out loud. But Freya can. He tried to kill me. And Rory. Her words hang in the cave air between them. It was a close call, her lingering on the brink of death. She would have if Rory didn't stop him. And if her powers hadn't returned, even if it was for a brief moment. Worry fills Lily's face as she stares at Freya, softly asking, "Are you all right?" She feels strange thinking of the experience, but she's alive. That's what matters.
I'm okay.
I thought I was dead the moment I walked in with the look in his eyes. But we didn't, and we got away. Lily's doe eyes fill with sadness. I'm sorry, Freya, I should have been there to help you. Freya quickly shakes her head. No, I'm happy you weren't there to see it. Rory agrees. I didn't want Freya there, and I wouldn't want you there, Lily. When Aaron's like that, he doesn't care who you are. If you stand in his way, he'll kill you in a blink of an eye. You would have gotten hurt too. And we need you. He looks quizzically at Freya. Why did you come? Merlin shifts uncomfortably in his seat. I brought her there. I heard the shouting and thought you needed help. So you delivered Freya to Aaron on a silver platter? Rory snarls at him. The flames rise again in response to Rory's anger at Merlin. Freya stiffens at the intensity between the two of them. She didn't think much of it at the time, but Merlin brought her to Aaron. It seemed like he did exactly what Aaron wanted. Merlin's mask of apathy wanes, replaced with frustration and guilt. I didn't know what would happen, that he would hurt her. How could you have not known? Rory snaps back. Freya tries to steer the conversation, to cut the tension between them. I'm fine, we're all fine. There's no point fighting about it. We're alive and away from Aaron. That's what matters. She gives a pointed look between Rory and Merlin, to stop the questioning. The guilt in them is too much for her to bear, not with her own guilt racking through her body. Rory leans back on the bench, conceding. For now. Lily picks up on Freya's call for peace. She quickly says, all of you spent so much power, you need to rest. I'll make dinner, and it'll be ready for you when you wake up. She gives a look to each of them, signifying she won't take no for an answer. The flames flicker, lessening as they prove Lily's point. Rory finally reaching his limits. Tiredness wrecks through Freya. The stress of almost dying takes hold of her. The fear of Rory almost dying. She's not sure what to make of it. Her friends, ostracizing themselves from the court they've grown up in. They have family and lovers in. Doing all of it for her. No matter how horrible the king is, she ripped them all from their homes. Their positions they held, their lives comfortable. Until she came along. All she wants is to sleep, to escape the guilt at least for a few hours. Rory stands up, walking to the sleeping bags and blankets. He throws a bundle of blankets at Merlin, a little too forcefully to be an accident. Merlin doesn't say anything in response, only clenching his jaw as he rises and lays out the sleeping bag on the cool cave ground. Freya, you can take the bed. Rory nods T0 the cot next to him. I don't mind a sleeping bag, you spent more energy than me, you take it, Freya insists. Rory shakes his head, spreading out his sleeping bag, and lays on the ground, pulling an ancient, scraggly blanket over him. Freya raises an eyebrow at his stubbornness. Rory matches her expression. Either you sleep there or none of us do. She purses her lips, ready to sleep on the ground to protest his relentlessness. But the worry in his face makes her leave the warm fire for the cot, tucking herself into the thin quilt, exhaustion pulling her eyelids down. The last thing she sees is Rory's face, looking at her as if she'll fall asleep and never wake, that he'll lose her again. She eases into the comfortable abyss of rest. Freya stirs awake from the dreamless sleep, feeling rested, fully herself again. Like Aaron never tried to suck the life out of her. That magic, leaching into someone's inner core. She's grateful she doesn't have that. That she'll never inflict that feeling upon someone. Her eyes slowly blink open, the smell of food wafting toward her. Her stomach rumbles in response. Merlin and Rory's voices float toward her, and she wonders how long she's been out. Lily notices her and offers a tense smile, her sapphire eyes wide with a slight glance to Merlin and Rory beside her. She says a little too quickly, Freya, you're awake. The two males' voices stop abruptly, both of them looking toward her. Freya feels the awkward tension but isn't ready to address it yet. Food first, then conversation. She slides out of the cot and sees a second blanket had been laid on top of her. wondering which one of them placed it on top of her. She eases herself on the bench beside Lily, the candle casting an ominous glow around the cavern. A massive pot with steam billowing out of it sits on top of the fire pit, a heavenly smell leaking out of it. Lily grabs her a bowl, pouring a ladle of thick, brown liquid into it. There was only stew. I hope that's all right. Someone, Lily's eyes cut to Rory, hasn't restocked this place in a while. Rory only rolls his eyes in response, a smile teasing at his lips but not fully forming. Freya eagerly takes the bowl from Lily. Stew is perfect. She digs in, devouring well over half of it. Warmth soaks into her, and she slurps down spoonfuls of the soup, ravenous from the events of the day. As her hunger subsides, her stomach filling with the dense liquid, the uncomfortable strain between Merlin and Rory becomes more apparent to her. Freya looks at Lily, shifting awkwardly in her seat, not making direct eye contact with any of them. Freya stares at her three friends, her eyebrows raised. What's going on? Lily tenses at the question and chews on her lip. Rory's eyes darken. Ask Merlin. Rory, please, Merlin says, helplessness in his voice. A pained expression spreads across his face. Anger rumbles through Rory, his body stiffening. Freya waits for the fire to blaze, the telltale sign of Rory's emotions. This rage is different. She recognizes it as betrayal. Freya's eyes widen, her jaw drops. Merlin, did you tell him? The only thing she can think of to make him that enraged, that hurt. He knows Merlin's the one who offered to break the oath. Lily grabs her arm tightly, a silent command for her to stop talking. Lily's lips for a tight line. Rory's fury shifts to confusion. Tell me what? He said you didn't know. Merlin's violet eyes bore into her, his whisper urgent in her mind. Freya, stop talking. It's not about that. Okay, not the oath. Freya's cheeks flush in embarrassment, searching for a way to backtrack, to take back her assumption. Merlin and Lily both stare at her incredulously, that she would offer up the information freely. Her mind reels, searching for an excuse. Nothing believable comes to mind. I was confused. What are you talking about? Lily winces at the weak attempt. Rory looks between the two of them, his puzzled look transforming into understanding, the pieces clicking together. Freya's reluctance to offer information about the oath. They're dancing, smiling at each other. Are you the one that told her there's a way to break the oath?